The UTEP Miners have a new head coach here in 2024. No more is Dana DeMel leading this program. Instead, now it is Scotty Walden, the former head coach of Austin Peay. He brought that team to an FCS playoff appearance last year and is looking to bring UTEP back into a bowl game. Not a very good season for the Miners last season. They do lose some very important pieces off of last year's team, but overall, they have enough talent here in the depths of Conference USA to push for a spot in the postseason. Can Scotty Walton impress the rest of the nation and get UTEP into a bowl game this season? We'll have to find out what I think here in this video. What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today, and I want to welcome you to my channel. And guys, we are so close to being done with prediction season. We're almost here. Join the ride with me. Hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when that video gets uploaded, or I guess just when the rest of my prediction videos get uploaded, or if somehow I haven't done your favorite team yet, that's when that video gets uploaded from. If somehow I haven't done your favorite team yet, you're going to want to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when that team goes up. Power 4 teams, you already got a video up on my channel. Most of the group of 5 teams do as well. Again, guys, we are so close to finishing prediction season. Join me in that journey. And if you're as big of a college football nerd as I am, you're going to want to join me on the journey during the college football season, which means you got to subscribe, you got to ring the bell so you know when all of that gets uploaded. Please help support the channel in any way you can, liking, commenting, sharing. Again, thank you so much for watching this video. Go watch my other videos. And guys, any way you interact with the channel helps to support it, means a lot to me, and we're going to be diving on in. Talking about the UTEP Miners here in 2024, but I got to tell you how we got to talk about them first. We'll take a deep dive into the team's offense, a deep dive into the defense, and then at the end of the video, we will go through the UTEP Miner football schedule and give it a game-by-game preview and prediction. Do have a couple more things, though, before we do start, because right over here will be the stats the team put up either offensively or defensively last season. And, of course, for your viewing pleasure, right down there below the team's logo, I have went ahead and put the team's coaching staff. And the coaching staff, by the way, was pretty difficult to figure out. No true quarterback coach that I could find, but they got coaches doing every sort of things. You even see one guy down there that has 3 separate coaching duties. Yeah, Scotty Walden is putting his guys to work, but the UTEP Miners, let's now start talking about him here in 2024. It just wasn't a great offense last year from a scoring standpoint. There were inconsistencies in the pass game, in the run game. They just seemingly couldn't convert a third down in a big moment. UTEP just had a lot of problems offensively last year, and they do lose a lot of great individual performers from last season. One of them is a guy by the name of Gavin Hardison. Now, he did end up sort of getting relieved of his starting quarterback roles last season. That being said, he still is a guy that is available as an NFL free agent, so you could definitely see him playing on Sunday somewhere down the road. But he had 947 yards, 5 touchdowns, 7 interceptions on 56% completion percentage last season. Again, not great stuff. Definitely not what we've seen out of Gavin Hardison in the past, but he is no longer going to be the quarterback of the UTEP Miners. You also do lose a guy by the name of Seth Mouser, who was off through the transfer portal. Didn't throw a pass last year, but definitely could have competed for that starting job here in 2024. So, okay, quarterback room. Who is going to be the starting quarterback this year? Well, you do bring a guy in through the transfer portal following Scotty Walden over from Austin Peay and Skylar Locklear. You're going to see that's kind of a theme during a lot of the transfers here for UTEP. But Cade McConnell is bona fide 100%, no doubt in my mind, he'll be the starting quarterback for the Miners this season. And after I take a water break, I'll tell you why. Please make sure you stay hydrated out there. But now let me tell you why Cade McConnell is the obvious choice to lead this team this season. Well, even though he's still got to develop his game a little bit, he's a very, very high upside guy. 1,437 yards, 6 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, average 8.4 yards per completion, and completed around 53.5% of his passes. I expect literally all of those numbers to get better. Obviously, the pass game and the touchdown number is going to get better just because he'll see more playing time than he did last season this year as the team's full primary starter and not sorting to have to take place of Gavin Hardison. I also did just now realize that Hardison's name was spelled wrong, so I fixed that. But Cade McConnell, I think, is going to provide some really, really good things here. Not a guy that's going to get out and run, but a solid player at the quarterback position. And I think a guy under the Scotty Walden system that can definitely thrive. You lose your top 3 leading rushers from last year. Deion Hankins, Torrance Burgess Jr., and Mike Franklin are all gone and off through the transfer portal. Hankins, 812 yards, 5 touchdowns. Burgess, 620 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Franklin, 180 yards and 3 touchdowns. Only 3 guys to get over 100 yards rushing for the Miners last season. All 3 gone through the transfer portal. You do return Ezell Jolly, but a lot more pieces do come in through the transfer portal. And I'll tell you all where they all come from right now. Javon Jackson is following Scotty Walden over from Austin P. He's projected to be that lead back this season. Calvin Hill is going to be coming over from Texas State. You get Corey Wren over from TCU, and another guy over from Austin P and Marquez Taylor. It'll be interesting to see how guys beyond Jevin Jackson sort of fit into this running back room, including the returner in Ezel Jolly, who as of right now is listed as the second string, but Javon Jackson's going to get the most carries out of anyone in this running back room. Wide receiver room lost its fair share of talent as well. Kelly Akari, and hopefully I'm saying that last name right, he has often gone through the transfer portal. He is transferred over to Mississippi State, where he's going to look to be the top target over there. Tyron Smith has transferred over to Cincinnati, and Jeremiah Ballard has entered the portal as well. He is now going to be a threat with the Tulsa Golden Hurricane. You talk about what Akari did last year, 1,033 yards, 7 touchdowns on 48 catches. Ballard was the team's second leading receiver last year, and even though Tyron Smith didn't have a reception last year, pretty big part of this offense back in 2022, I do believe. I'll fact check that right now. But regardless, Tyron Smith, really, really good player. And yes, he was a 1,000-yard receiver back in 2022. I knew I wasn't misremembering something. And you do lose Marcus Bellin, who is gone due to graduation. And Bellin had darn near 100 yards last season, 97 of them to be exact. Zach Fryer has gone out of the tight end room, and Marcus Vincent is off through the transfer portal. Zach Fryer, by the way, no more eligibility. He has graduated. So what comes back, what comes into this wide receiver and tight end room? Well, we'll start with the tight end room because it's all returners. Judah Izinwa and Julian Lopez both return, as well as some other guys you could have listed. But the main focus of this pass game is going to be this wide receiver room. Amari White is going to be coming back. He had 8 catches for 132 yards last season. You also do return Javon Gardier, however you pronounce that last name. But again, much like the running back room, a lot of guys are coming in here through the portal to try to give this team some production in 2024. Jaden Smith is going to be coming in here to this team. And he's going to probably end up being one of, if not the lead target. He's over from Eastern Kentucky. Trey Goodman is over from Austin P. Cam Thomas is over from Austin P. And Kenny Odom is over from Austin P. So you get 3 Austin P guys and a guy from Eastern Kentucky. They all should play pretty big minutes here in this wide receiver room. We've already talked about the tight ends, but I did leave out a name as Martavius Collins is a freshman that enters this program and could play some pretty big minutes out of this tight end room. Now off the offensive line, I mean, this is just where the losses get really heavy because you'll lose a ton of offensive linemen from last season. Andrew Meyer and Zuri Henry are both gone to the NFL. Elijah Klein has graduated, and Justin Mayer, Stephen Hubbard, and Aluma Nakele have all entered the transfer portal. Nonetheless, here's what you have in your offensive line room this upcoming season. Ivan Escobar, Otis Pitts, Joseph, I will fix that spelling, Amediato, and hopefully I'm saying that last name right, and Azizi Henry all return to the offensive line room, while Isaiah Wright and Brennan Smith are some transfers that enter this program. Both of them, you guessed it, coming over from Austin P to hopefully provide some impact on this offensive line for UTEP. So a little bit mix of UTEP returners, some transfers from elsewhere, and a lot of guys who played for Scotty Walden and Austin P last year are entering this program. What do I think the offense is going to look like this year? Well, I'll tell you. I think it's going to get better than it was last season. Scotty Walden had a pretty good offense at Austin P last year. In some categories, it was in the top 25 of FCS last season, and he's just a really good offensive mind in general. So Cade McConnell, I think it's going to provide some really good quarterback play, and if that is the case, guys like Javon Jackson, Jaden Smith, and all of these Austin P transfers, of course, Jevin Jackson being one of them, are going to fit in very, very nicely. They've been in this system. They're going to be able to provide these returners to UTEP who are also talented in their own right, the experience and knowledge they need, and this offense should see improvement, if not significant improvement, here in 2024. Taking a look here at the defensive side of the ball for UTEP, and this side of the ball, while in a lot of ways it wasn't terrible, in fact, the pass defense actually was pretty good. Yeah, the rush defense was not. Again, and no, I did not have those numbers flip-flop. That's actually when I paused the video, paused the recording to go check. But no, they were a really darn good secondary last year, just didn't allow a whole lot of passing yards, but it was the rush defense that severely let this team down. It was the rush defense that let them down in trying to get off the field and trying to provide some stops and allow teams to not, of course, score the football. They're losing a lot of talent last year, especially off of this defensive front. And especially with this defensive front, apologies for any mispronunciations here, but Canius Vaughn was a huge piece to what the defensive line did last season. And of course, losing him is just going to be a very, very substantial loss. He had 19 tackles. You say only 19 tackles? Yeah, well, he had 6 sacks last season. He is going to be a very, very very big integral piece wherever he happened to go. I think initially he transferred to Utah, but now is no longer with the Utes. Unsure of where he landed off the top of my head, but he will not be playing for the Miners here in 2024. Jalen Rudolph and Raquan Thompson are also gone through the portal. Praise Amaywool is going to be gone due to graduation. He is another big part to the defensive line last year. 33 tackles and 5 sacks last season, as well as Keenan Stewart. Those are all your losses on the defensive front. Of course, Vaughn and Amaywool are the most notable, but you still get your sack leader from last season back. That is Maurice Westmoreland, 37 tackles. He was actually a top 5 tackler on this defense with 7.5 sacks last year. He's going to be joining the likes of KD Johnson, Logo Va, Sione Tonga Uiha, and Tavita Tafuna, as well as some other names, and a guy through the transfer portal in Devin Gorey that is going to provide some pretty solid minutes and really good production, especially that of Westmoreland, to the defensive line here in 2024. Linebacker room, well, you do lose your leading tackler from last year, and he was such a good defensive player. He broke triple digits, guys. Tyrese Knight had 140 tackles, 4.5 sacks, and 6 passes defended last season. James Neal is going to be gone and off through the transfer portal. So let's talk about what comes back in this linebacker room as James Neal. Well, he was the team's second leading tackler last year, so you lose your top 2 linebackers from a season ago. Really, only notable returner I could find was Jake Hall, at least that was listed on both rosters, RLAD depth charts, things like that. So a lot of this linebacking unit is going to come through the transfer portal. Dorian Hopkins, Trey Dunson, and Dylan Brown Turner are all names that you see enter this program through the portal here in 2024. You want to go ahead and take a look at what the defensive back room holds? Sure, why not? Torrey Richardson and Trez Moore, 2 pretty talented cornerbacks for the Miners last season, are both gone and off through the transfer portal. Richardson had 33 tackles, 7 passes defended. That was second on the team last year. And Trez Moore, a pretty solid player in his own right last season as well. When he did play, only 6 tackles, but did have an interception for this team last season. So, of course, forcing a takeaway, pretty notable thing. AJ Odoms does come back, though, and he was a very good corner last year. Led the team in pass defended with 8 of them. He'll be joined by Amir Boyd Matthews, who comes back, as well as some transfers like Yesman Green and Jalen Shelton. And now when you talk about what they lose out of the safety room, Kobe Hilton, Mikael Broussard, and Tyler Williams, as well as Trajan Hugie, Hugu, however you pronounce that last name, my apologies. Hilton, 54 tackles, 4 sacks last season. Broussard, another very good player, 27 tackles for him last year. Tyler Williams was another guy that had some really good production. All 3 of those guys off through the portal. Of course, Trajan is going to be graduating, and you just lose some really solid safety production from last season. Okay, so who comes back? Well, Josiah Allen is back. 41 tackles, half a sack, and 5 passes defended for him. You also get Oscar Moore and Stephon Cameron back, while Corey Chapman and Xavier Smith enter through the portal. Joshua Sloan is gone through the portal out of the kicking room because kickers are people too. We got to show him some love. He was a punter last year that'll no longer be punting for the UTEP Miners. You get Adam Jacklin in through the portal and Buzz Flaviano in to come back and be the place kicker for this team here in 2024. Missed 1 extra point and only 4 field goals last season. So overall, you talk about what this team is on the defensive end, and I think, again, you see some improvements here, especially on that defensive front. I think a lot of the transfers you brought in the linebacker room are going to provide some really good minutes, and then overall, you just take a look here. I think if the transfers can mesh and the transfers can fit in well, you have a lot of returning talent. Getting Maurice Westmoreland back on the defensive front is massive, and overall, the defense, it might not be as big as the offense, but it should still see its fair share of improvements here in 2024. Now you go ahead and take a look at the UTEP football schedule, which looks like this, and this is what they got to navigate to try to reach the postseason in Scotty Walden's first year. All right, if you don't know how we do schedules by now, well, I'll tell you how everything is laid out. My apologies. Any game at home is going to be underlined. Well, any game on the road is in italics. If you don't know what that is, it's that slanted text. Any game you see in green is a game that I think the Miners are going to win pretty easily. Any game in yellow is going to be a close competitive game. And any game that gets highlighted in red is a projected loss for the UTEP Miners. And they got some really tricky non-conference games here, including 2 games against Power 4 teams. And I think they lose both of them. Now, the second one against the Power 4 team comes later, but just so you know, I will have them losing that game. It's against one of the better teams in the country in the Tennessee Volunteers, but this one against the Nebraska Cornhuskers to kick off the Scotty Walden era, I think, look, they have enough talent here to where I think they can give the Cornhuskers a pretty good run, especially if that pass rush gets a little bit better this year. They can make first year quarterback Dylan Raiola feel some pressure. But overall, Nebraska is just way too talented. I mentioned Dylan Raiola. He's going to be an absolute stud this year. Really good pickups out of the transfer portal in the wide receiver room. They have one of the best defensive staffs in the entire country. And just overall, guys, I think Nebraska is going to be able to finally pick it up and start to get back to their former glory in the Big Ten this year. That's a loss for the UTEP Miners, but they should be able to win in week 2 against Southern Utah, an FCS level team. Scotty Walden, familiar with how to win there in that level of competition, did it last year. And Southern Utah never really has the best luck against FBS competition, so UTEP will be able to beat them. You do lose your next 2 games, though, against teams I just simply think are going to be better than UTEP this year. Liberty, most definitely. The first conference game of the year is you just draw the absolute hardest team and what could be the best team yet again out of the group of 5 ranks. They were last season, and they get Caden Salter, Quentin Cooley, and everyone else back. The Liberty Flames are going to be back, rolling, and ready to go. That is a loss for the UTEP Miners, as well as this game here against Colorado State. Braden Fowler Nicolosi is coming back, and you get one of the better, if not the best, wide receiver out of the Mountain West Conference in Torrey Horton back, loaded up on some pretty good transfers, especially in that defensive backfield. Colorado State's going to take another jump under Jay Norvell from where they were last season. That's just what Jay Norvell does. He knows how to build programs, did it with Nevada. He's doing it here with Colorado State, and I think Colorado State a huge player to get to a bowl game and possibly a sneaky Mountain West title contender this year. But the Rams are going to be able to beat the Miners, leaving Scotty Walden 1-3 so far in his FBS coaching debut. But not to fret. There are some very manageable games coming up here. After your first bye week, you have a long string of weekday games. This one coming on a Thursday. It's against the Sam Houston Bearcats, and I just think it's going to be another season where Sam Houston is going to struggle. Look, Jace Bauer is coming in. They're bringing in some solid pieces here and there, peppered throughout the defense through the portal with some really good returning talent, and that defense is going to be very experienced this season. But overall, when you talk about Sam Houston, they had a tough time adjusting to the FBS level last year, and I just simply think that continues for the Bearcats in 2024. I don't really see much to where I think this team is going to excel or explode, and while they may get a little bit better in some ways, I still see it being a really rough season for that program. I think this is a win for UTEP, and Scotty Walden gets his first win in Conference USA, improving this minor team to 2-3. I do think they lose against the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers too. Water break. Make sure you stay hydrated out there. Even though Western Kentucky is losing Austin Reed and a lot of other very, very impressive pieces from last season, including Malachi Coleman, who I do believe was that wide receiver from last season. No, sorry, Malachi Corley, not Coleman. I'm thinking about a Nebraska commit, Malachi Corley, who was a very good wide receiver for them last season. You do get some really good pieces back, and TJ Finley enters through the portal. If he can do what he did at Texas State last year this season, man, that offense is still going to be really darn good. Lots of good transfers coming in, especially in that defensive backfield. Western Kentucky still going to be one of the better teams in Conference USA, and they beat UTEP. But UTEP is going to be able to get back on track here. They will pick up a win against FIU, and the Panthers did a lot better than what a lot of people, including myself, were going to give them credit for here last season. Now, this season, you take a look at what they have. Well, you are going to have Keanu Jenkins coming in or I should say coming back to play quarterback, but they didn't really utilize the portal a whole lot. And honestly, they might be right where they were last year, if not maybe a tad bit worse. But overall, FIU I still think is going to push. They're still going to be competitive, still going to be a solid team, but I still think UTEP is the better team. I think they have the better head coach in Scotty Walden, and I think they're going to be able to win that football game there at home against FIU. That one, by the way, on a Wednesday. This game here is on a Tuesday. It comes against Louisiana Tech, and even though UTEP may be more talented than the Bulldogs this year, it's just kind of one of those things where head coaches transitioning from FCS to FBS, and look, I think Scotty Walden's going to do a phenomenal job. I just think this is a game here where UTEP is going to be able to drop, or not going to be able to drop. I think they are going to drop. It's a game that they probably actually have a pretty decent chance to win here, but I do like a lot of the talent Louisiana Tech brought in, even though I don't think it's going to be a great year for that program. You get Denario Davenport in at running back, really like him. Some really good pieces coming at the wide receiver position. They loaded up on depth through the portal with a lot of returning starting pieces, and overall, I still think that team is going to end up being pretty solid this year. Will they make a bowl game? Maybe, maybe not, but overall, it is a game that I see UTEP being able to, a game that they could potentially win, but a game that I do have them losing. They do not get a bye week here, but because they played on Tuesday, they get a pretty lengthy week before preparing for Middle Tennessee. And I think they win this one. And this is kind of the flip flop of that last game. Even though I think UTEP more talented than La Tech, I think they lose that one. And even though I think in a lot of ways Middle Tennessee potentially has some more talent than UTEP, UTEP's got the edge on him in a lot of important positions, but you got to watch out for Nick Vadiato at quarterback for Middle Tennessee. He's going to be a difference maker in every which way for that program this season, but I think UTEP is able to get him. With the way that secondary played last year, I think Scotty Walton's going to take some of those philosophies that worked for UTEP last year, mold them into this season. The transfers will be fit in nicely at this point, and UTEP will be beating Middle Tennessee. They will also be beating Kennesaw State. So how about that? One win away from a postseason berth for UTEP, but Kennesaw State, much like Sam Houston, they just aren't going to have a great season this year. Kennesaw State is going to have a tough time adjusting to the FBS level this season. And then when you go ahead and take a look at what that team was last year, they weren't all that great, lost some good pieces, and I see UTEP winning that one there. Second bye week comes now, but it will be before a road game against the Tennessee Volunteers. And unfortunately for UTEP, this is going to end up being a loss. It's Nico Iamaleava time in Tennessee in Rocky Top, and Rocky Top's going to be one of the better teams in the SEC this season. UTEP will lose that one, but it all comes down to this. Does Scotty Walden make a bowl game in his first year? Well, I think it's definitely possible. Sadly, no. I do have them losing to New Mexico State here. Again, road games are just going to be the enemy of UTEP this season. They lose all 7 of them on the road, and even though New Mexico State loses a ton of talent from last season, including their head coach, Jerry Kill, they still got enough to be competitive, enough to pull out some wins, and this is one I just seen UTEP being able to, pun absolutely not intended, fumble here at the end of the season. So I got 5 and 7 for UTEP, even though a bowl game is extremely possible. They got very lucky with their home games here. Sam Houston, FIU, Kennesaw State, not going to be that great of teams this year. And even their road draw. I mean, Louisiana Tech and New Mexico State, I also don't think are going to be particularly great. UTEP is going to be a pretty solid team this season. But overall, when you just take a look at it, I think UTEP just misses out on a bowl game. Scotty Walton's going to figure it out. I think he's a great, young, up-and-coming head coach, but it's going to take a little bit here. Maybe next year UTEP can break in. This year's absolutely possible, but I got him falling just short. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I want you to remember to play hard but tailgate harder, and we'll be talking about the Ball State Cardinals here in my next video. Goodbye.